Market analysis, Bichette, Cody Bellinger, and the pitching market. Moving on to the next major narrative, the future of Bichette appears to be intricately linked to the market movements of Alex Bregman, with the Blue Jays and Red Sox keeping a close eye on both stars. A significant strategic advantage for Toronto is that they are the only club that would not have to forfeit a draft pick to secure his services. Bichette's camp has recently signaled a willingness for him to transition to second base, a move that has effectively blown the doors open for interest from high-spending franchises like the Phillies, Yankees, Cubs, and Dodgers. At only 27 years old, Bichette is a rare offensive weapon, being the only player to maintain a .300 average against fastballs, breaking balls, and change-ups alike. While the Philadelphia Phillies might have the most glaring void to fill in their lineup, the Toronto Blue Jays remain the most logical fit, as they could offer him the chance to remain at shortstop or pair him with Andrelton Jimenez for a lockdown middle infield. In the Bronx, a potential Bichette signing would create a fascinating but chaotic situation. He could fill in at shortstop while Anthony Volpe works his way back, but the long-term defensive alignment remains a murky puzzle. The financial commitment for Bichette is expected to hover around $25 million annually, making it a high-stakes gamble for any team trying to balance their payroll. From a pure roster need perspective, the Phillies are arguably at the top of the list, as their lineup lacks consistent depth after the big three of Turner, Schwarber, and Harper. However, the idea of Bichette joining the Dodgers seems highly improbable given the recent history between the two sides. Ultimately, while several teams are hungry for his talent, Toronto's familiarity and lack of draft pick penalties give them the strongest hand in this negotiation. The market for Cody Bellinger and Kyle Tucker. Turning our attention to Cody Bellinger, the market remains in a state of suspense as the New York Yankees maintain a firm stance on their valuation. The Yankees appear to be playing a calculated game of chicken, refusing to bid against themselves, even though many industry insiders believe a reunion is the most inevitable outcome. Beyond the Bronx, the New York Mets have emerged as a serious contender after clearing roster space, while the Angels, Blue Jays, and Dodgers remain lurking in the shadows. For the Yankees, Bellinger would provide essential length to the lineup, likely slotting into the third spot and offering defensive flexibility across the outfield. However, the Los Angeles Angels might actually represent the most desperate fit, as they are starved for a potent left-handed bat to protect Mike Trout and provide some much-needed offensive longevity. The Blue Jays could also view Bellinger as a sophisticated plan B if their pursuit of Kyle Tucker fails to materialize, especially given their desire for a reliable left-handed hitter at the top of the order. Meanwhile, the Dodgers are likely the least favorable destination for Bellinger this time around, as his arrival would almost certainly block the path of top prospect Dalton Rushing and complicate their batting order. The race for elite pitching. As for the pitching market, Framber Valdez has become the focal point for the Orioles and Mets, largely due to his deep history with executives Mike Elias and David Stearns. Joining the Baltimore Orioles would immediately transform their rotation, elevating them from a talented young squad to a genuine World Series heavyweight with a definitive ace at the helm. The New York Mets are equally desperate for a true number one starter, as their current rotation is largely composed of mid-tier options. To land a big whale like Valdez, Stearns may need to deploy a highly creative contract, perhaps utilizing multiple opt-outs to entice the veteran southpaw to Queens. Interestingly, the Atlanta Braves represent a wild card scenario. While they rarely chase high-priced free agents, adding Valdez to a staff already featuring Chris Sale and Spencer Strider would create a terrifying four-ace rotation. The San Francisco Giants also have a compelling case, as they need to match the pitching depth of their NL West rivals to be taken seriously in October. Finally, Ranger Suarez is drawing significant interest from the same group of teams, including the Mets, Orioles, and Braves. While Suarez might be viewed as a high-end number 2 or 3 starter in a deep rotation, he would be the undisputed ace for the Los Angeles Angels. For a team like the Chicago Cubs, Suarez would be an incredible luxury to bolster their pitching depth, but the Angels' need for a top-of-the-rotation leader makes them the most desperate and logical fit. These pending moves represent a high-stakes game of financial chess that will define the power structure of the league for years to come. MLB Transfer Market Analysis, the chess match for stars. Continuing the transfer market analysis, Bichette's future is currently the center of attention as he enters the prime of his career at age 27. The Philadelphia Phillies are identified as the club most eager to secure the slugger's signature to bolster an already formidable offense. Philadelphia's lineup currently lacks consistency in the slots behind stars like Bryce Harper or Trey Turner. Adding a player capable of hitting everything from fastballs to breaking balls like Bichette would be a landmark upgrade. However, the biggest hurdle for the Phillies is reconfiguring the infield to ensure no overlap between stars. On the other hand, the New York Yankees are also considering bringing Bichette to the Bronx as a safety net at shortstop, given that Anthony Volpe has not fully recovered. This scenario promises an extremely flexible defense but poses a difficult puzzle regarding playing time distribution in the long run. If Bichette lands in New York, Jazz Chisholm Jr. might have to move to the outfield to make room for new elements. This would inadvertently create a major disruption in the development plans for young talents like Jason Dominguez, who needs space to shine. The complexity of the roster structure makes the Yankees more cautious about making a high-value official offer. While other teams are still struggling with personnel options, the Toronto Blue Jays are still considered the most stable and suitable destination for Bichette. Toronto possesses a unique advantage as the only club that does not face draft pick penalties if they re-sign their star. A long-standing relationship and an understanding of the team's operational philosophy help Bichette maintain peak performance without needing time to adapt. The Blue Jays management could fully commit to keeping him at his natural shortstop position instead of forcing a move to second base as other offers might. Pairing Bichette with new infield additions like Andrelton Jimenez would help Toronto build a solid and cohesive defense. The standoff for Cody Bellinger. Turning to the case of Cody Bellinger, we see a tense battle of wits between his agent and the New York Yankees management. Despite it being January, Bellinger has yet to finalize his future as the Yankees stand firm on a valuation they deem reasonable. The New York squad seems to be employing a waiting tactic to drive the price down rather than rushing into an unnecessary blockbuster contract. Many experts believe the two sides will eventually find common ground because the compatibility between Bellinger and Yankee Stadium is undeniable. If this deal succeeds, he will take over left field and become a vital link in the Pinstripes' plan to conquer the championship. Besides the Yankees, the Los Angeles Angels have emerged as a potential destination with an urgent need for a high-class left-handed hitter. The Anaheim-based team desperately needs someone to support and alleviate the scoring pressure on superstar Mike Trout, given the current thin lineup. Bellinger, with his versatility in both the outfield and at first base, would provide many tactical options for the head coach. However, the biggest issue lies in the player's own ambition, as he surely wants to join a team capable of competing for the title immediately. Despite their financial potential, the Angels' inconsistent track record could be a barrier to convincing top stars. The pitching market, Framber Valdez and beyond. The pitching market started vibrantly with Framber Valdez, as both the Baltimore Orioles and the New York Mets are actively pursuing him. The familiarity between Valdez and the front offices of both clubs is a key factor driving negotiations forward quickly. In Baltimore, Valdez is expected to lead the young pitching staff and elevate the team to a true World Series contender. After years of accumulating young talent, the Orioles are now ready to spend big on a true ace to realize their ambitions. Conversely, the New York Mets also need a face for their starting rotation after making several significant personnel changes. To secure a high-caliber pitcher like Valdez in a competitive market, teams are forced to offer groundbreaking contract terms. David Stearns is famous for his ability to draft clever agreements that integrate multiple opt-out options for the player after a few seasons. These flexible contract structures not only help the team mitigate long-term risk but also create appeal for stars in their prime. Including clauses that allow for salary adjustments based on performance or contribution will be the key for the Mets to outpace their competitors. The race for Valdez's signature is therefore not just a battle of money, but also a test of executive intelligence. Another surprising scenario could unfold if the Atlanta Braves decide to break tradition and enter the race for Framber Valdez. Although they usually prioritize internal talent development, the Braves understand that owning a rotation with 4 #1 caliber pitchers is a rare opportunity. The combination of Valdez and current stars like Chris Sale or Spencer Strider would turn Atlanta into a nightmare for any batting lineup. An absolute depth in the pitching rotation would be the ultimate weapon to help them dominate the league and go deep in the postseason. However, this possibility remains open as Braves management is always very cautious in managing the annual payroll and transfer budget. Finally, we cannot overlook Ranger Suarez, a pitcher highly regarded for his stability and ability to handle pressure in big games. While big teams see him as a quality supplementary option, the Los Angeles Angels see in him the silhouette of a true leader. In Anaheim, Suarez would no longer have to stand in the shadow of senior teammates but could confidently assert his position as the team's #1 pitcher. His appearance would immediately upgrade the quality of the pitching staff, which has been a chronic weakness for the Angels for many seasons. Acquiring a high-class pitcher like Suarez would be the first step in the journey to rebuild fan confidence. Conclusion. The MLB transfer market is playing out like a chessboard with calculated moves and mutual weighting between the parties involved. Each signed contract will create a chain effect, completely changing the landscape and strategy of the remaining teams. The patience and situational reading of executives will determine who wins this grueling arms race. Fans are holding their breath for the iconic final moves that will reshape the league's power order in the new season. Let us prepare for surprise announcements that could emerge at any time from the headquarters of the major market giants in the U.S.